Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tyler's Pragmatic podcast, hosted by me, the one and only Tyler R. Johnson. First things first, let's get the theme out of the way. The theme we're focusing on today is judgment, and judgment was a very prevalent theme throughout the Scarlet Letter when we read it through class period. Um, and our thematic question today is going to be: how should we, as human beings, learn to deal with judgment from others? Uh, this is a very important question to target here today, because judgment as a whole influences individuals to act in certain ways that may not be beneficial for their overall health or any type of social advancement that they wish to endeavor on. Uh, Judgment can be seen sort of in a different light as a form of bullying. Um, this isn't true for all types of judgment. And when we're referring to judgment here, we're referring to overall like outwards adjustment judgment, not within the brain. As in, if somebody is judging someone else, but keeping it within, that is not what we're really assessing here. We're referring to outward judgment, aka can be synonymous with bullying. And to open this up to connect judgment to bullying, we can connect this with some bullying statistics. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, in 2016, more than 1 out of every 5 students reported being bullied. So obviously, this is a prevalent problem, and that's just reporting. There is probably more, but you have many individuals who choose not to report certain types of bullying out of either fear for uh, not societal, but how about social pressure as a result of reporting this type of bullying. You can also refer to the statistic that less men also report being bullied at school, and if we think about it with common sense, men are more likely to probably bully just because as a result of aggressive tendencies. Males definitely have more aggressive tendencies, and the fact that only 23% of females report being bullying and 19% of men clearly displays that men have a rough time with assessing whether or not they're being bullied or not, or they just don't want to report that as a sign of weakness. So these statistics from the National Bullying Prevention Center and the National Center for Educational Statistics really shine light on the overall problem of judgment and, by extension, bullying. Um, to note how we can solve this type of problem, though, if we relate back to the thematic question, how should we as human beings learn to deal with judgment from others? We really have to look at it in a pragmatic sense, as in this podcast is called Tyler's Pragmatic Podcast for a reason. And pragmatically speaking, bullying as a whole cannot be solved because, as a whole, it is judgment. Judgment is bullying, and we cannot just get rid of judgment because that's literally impossible. That's called suppression of thought, and that's not what we're really in line of advocating for, because we are a democracy or a republic uh, who has very instilled amendment rights to freedom of speech, and we're not going to usurp those rights in favor of abolishing judgment, because judgment will never be abolished in the first place. So it's important to note that the pragmatic view here is dealing with how to deal with bullying, and to deal with bullying, we're gonna ask Hazen here. We're gonna bring him in, and how's it going, Hazen? Uh, we're here asking some questions about judgment and bullying and how we can alleviate the effects of bullying. So, how is your day, Hazen?
My day has been phenomenal. How's yours?
My day is great too. So we're gonna get right into these questions, and the first question we're gonna ask here is: do you think at times judgment can be one and the same with bullying?
So when talking about judgment and bullying, there are fine lines there because there is critique, there's constructive criticism, and then there's obviously deconstructive criticism. And I think deconstructive criticism is when bullying ensues, because obviously bullying isn't constructive, and um, that fuses the line. And some people that don't know boundaries between constructive and deconstructive criticism confuse the line between judgment and bullying.
I think that's a very realistic and very insightful approach to bullying, the idea of it as a whole in Judgment. And to follow up on this, have you seen or have you been the victim of bullying within classrooms?
I personally have not been a victim, even though I have been made fun of. I do not feel as though I've been bullied because jokes are jokes, but I have seen other kids be bullied, such as Connor Hensley.
Yes, poor
But
Connor. Yes.
in his case, he really puts up with it.
Yeah, he totally he kind of in a way absorbs it and says, "I don't really care what you think about me. It's funny." You know, it's
Hmm.
so funny to him that he doesn't care what people think about him, and that's an admirable quality, that's for sure. Uh,
Definitely.
and that actually answers my next question of dealing or how other people have dealt with bullying. And Connor obviously is a shining example of how you should deal with jokes and judgment as a whole. So what do you personally think is the best way of dealing with judgment?
So I personally think the best way to deal with judgment is to just not listen to them. You know,
Yeah,
you
and
got you got people that want to be your friends, and you got people that don't want to be your friends, and the ones that are going to talk you down are the people that you have to step away from.
I agree. I totally agree with that. That is a very insightful approach. I appreciate your time here, Hazen. I will see you in another video.
With that,
So, to conclude here, the overall premise of dealing with judgment and by extension bullying, as the theme presents itself in the Scarlet Letter, is to really just ignore most judgment. And see, the problem with this comes into the fact that ignoring people is very hard, and ignoring people's opinions is also very hard. But to some people cannot deal with that. Of course, some people cannot use that answer, and for those people, that's where people have to reach out and ask for help with different types of bullying services, and that's also another hard thing to do. So bullying is a very hard thing to solve, but for the more mentally, the more people who have the mental fortitude to go through with the ignorance of people's opinions, they will find a better time with dealing with bullying, and I believe that is the best way of dealing with bullying, and to just come to the conclusion that most people's opinions don't actually matter, and their judgments can be just really tucked under the, the rug, and you just go about your day and just ignore it, really. Uh, that sounds like it's a very pragmatic viewpoint, and that's exactly what we look for here on Tyler's Pragmatic Podcast. I appreciate your time listening to me here today, blabber on about judgment and bullying. I feel like it's a very important issue to talk about. We're going to end this with make sure you check out our sponsor, Mang Wok Kitchen. Use code YEET for 50% off your next egg roll at Mang Wok. I repeat, use code YEET for 50% off your next egg roll at Mang Wok. Uh, Using code YEET will help fund Tyler's Pragmatic Podcast so that we can stay on the air longer. It will also help your local business, Mang Wok, within North Ridgeville. Thank you for your time, and sayonara.
Gucci Gang.
Gucci Gang.